Most Jeep owners don't overspend because of what they buy, they overspend because of when they buy. And that's what this video is about. I'm not going to tell you what mods you need, I'm not going to push any parts on you. I'm going to explain how doing things in the wrong order quietly costs people thousands of dollars over time. Hi, my name is Ben and this is Path to Rome. On this channel, I replace guesswork with understanding so that you can make better decisions, save more money over time, and ultimately use your Jeep the way it was meant to be. I've watched people spend thousands of dollars fixing their Jeep on problems that actually haven't even developed yet. Not because they were reckless, because they upgraded based on fear, advice, and assumptions instead of real information. What usually happens is someone notices a potential weak point. They hear some advice online, they run out and spend thousands of dollars on the most expensive part to fix a problem that doesn't even exist. Nothing's broken, nothing failed, money got spent early, and often you're going to spend it twice. When people hear wrong order, they generally think that I'm talking about something done incorrectly. But that's not the issue. Most expensive Jeep builds are not built incorrectly. They just maybe are built earlier than they need to be. And look, I'll be the first to tell you, if you don't have a budget, you don't care how much money you spend, and you want to dump thousands and thousands of dollars into your Jeep and let it be the biggest, baddest thing ever, go for it. I'm not here to stop you to do that. I'm talking to the person who actually has a budget, kind of like me, and has to build things over time. So what happens is that upgrades that eventually make sense get done before there's enough information to even justify them. And that cost, it doesn't come from something being dangerous or something failing, it comes from decisions being made out of context. When you upgrade early, you're spending money before you even understand how your Jeep actually behaves, what changes over time, and what truly becomes a limitation. Let me give you an example. I just bought this fancy Jeep. I'm gonna throw some 37s on it, which I had a video about. If you haven't seen, check that out. And you think to yourself, all right, I just put this lift on, I got these tires, I need to upgrade my steering. Why? You haven't drove it with the big tires, you haven't drove it with the lift, you don't even know if the steering has a problem. Now, maybe you went 6 inches of lift and you need to change some steering angles and stuff like that. That's a different story. What I'm talking about is getting out, driving the Jeep and saying to yourself, oh, this is actually probably fine. But what you need to do, you need to learn how to monitor your steering and look for weaknesses and look for things when they start to wear out. Because those factory parts, as good as they are, and as long as they're going to take you, will wear out faster. So, back to the original point. Don't just run out and spend a bunch of money. Learn how to do things in the proper order, and you're going to save yourself a lot of money over time. And hey, if you got 40,000 miles out of your steering, that's potentially 2 years that you could have had money for other things in your budget or different things like that before you actually needed to make that upgrade. And this brings me to my next point. One of the biggest misconceptions in the Jeep world is that stock parts are fragile. They're not. They're just designed to operate in a certain range. And within that range, they're surprisingly capable. Now, most importantly, stock parts, they give you something incredibly valuable, and that is information. They give you a baseline. They show you patterns. They help you understand what normal should actually feel like on your Jeep. If you buy a Jeep, rip everything factory out, throw a bunch of parts on there, and drive, and you don't like something about it, guess what? You have no idea what it is. You have no idea what you're looking for. Every evolution of an upgrade or a modification should be a learning phase, and that is what gets missed, and that is why unnecessary spending happens all the time. Now, I will tell you, I used to be a victim of this. I would chase parts, I would grab stuff because I thought I needed it, and I have spent thousands of dollars over many years in multiple different Jeep builds doing this same exact thing until eventually I started to learn some discipline and it was time to figure out some systems. Now, if you're interested, I have a totally free resource down in the description. Check it out. It's a cost control playbook for Jeep JLs and JTs so that you can own your Jeep and own your adventure. Totally free. If you're interested, check out the link below. I think the most frustrating thing for people is when they actually have to spend more than they anticipated, and especially when they have to spend money twice to fix the same problem. This is how people quietly blow past their budgets and don't even realize it. They always find themselves upgrading early based on fear and advice, not real-world feedback. Later, once they've actually driven their Jeep, they realize that the problems they were trying to solve didn't really exist. Or potentially it wasn't the main issue. Now, obviously, parts are going to wear out. There's going to be certain things you want to upgrade. There's certain things you're going to feel more security from. You're going to feel more comfortable going out with certain things. But it's important to understand that there's a difference between a want and a need. And if you want to chase wants all day long, go for it. I'm not here to stop you doing that. But don't let someone tell you that you absolutely need something when in reality, you probably don't. And it's sometimes hard to find a good shop that you know you can count on. If you're in the Nevada or California area and you're willing to make a little bit of a drive, check out Disciple Off-Road in Hanford, California. They'll always take good care of you. Jeremy down there does an amazing job with gears and anything else. I'll throw a link down below in case you want to check out their website, but ultimately give him a call if you need to get something done. So this is where sequencing comes in. I want to be very clear about what I mean by this. Sequencing is not a universal build list, not a checklist that everyone should follow. Everyone has different goals. They have different places they want to go. They have different things they want to do. They have different ideas for how they want to build their Jeep. I think the most important decision here is you have to start with how you want to use your Jeep. You have to think about, do I want to just drive it on the street? Do I want to do fire roads and go camping? Do I want to actually get into some rock crawling? Do I want to do a little bit of everything? Knowing that is the absolute foundation of what direction you're going to go with your build and how you're going to approach the upgrades that you need. After you know what you want, I think tire size really becomes the number one thing you have to think about. Do you want 37s? Are 35s going to be enough? Do I want to blow all the money I've ever made and get 40s? That's up to you. Even before you buy the tires, go out and drive it. Figure out where your limitations are. Figure out what you could do had you had bigger tires. Start to figure out what changed on your Jeep. What physical limitations did you have? What mental hurdles did you have to overcome because you didn't have a built Jeep? But most importantly, pay attention and then start to respond. This way, upgrades can come from observation and not necessarily assumptions. And now, you can start to solve real problems instead of imaginary ones. Look, I don't want to confuse anybody. When I say wait, I don't mean ignore. Waiting is done intentionally. It means monitoring, keeping an eye on your systems, understanding what's going on. It means gathering information. It means separating discomforts and actual risk. When you have problems, you have to address them. But if you don't have problems, this whole idea of a system is really about ownership. It's about understanding the ins and outs of your Jeep so that you can own your Jeep and own your adventure and be more comfortable with doing everything. And really, it's one of the fastest ways to stop unnecessary spending. Now, it's very important that you hear this next part. When you upgrade in the right order, something important really happens. You don't just spend less, you spend better. Your parts are going to last longer, your decisions are made in a much more calmer manner, and you stop feeling like every change requires an immediate action. Now I'm going to piggyback off my steering example earlier. My 392, as of filming this video, has about 42,000 miles on it. Up until about 4,000 miles ago, I ran a completely factory steering setup. There was nothing different about it. I have a coilover conversion. I'm running about 4.5 inches of lift on 38-inch tires, and guess what? My steering has been totally fine. Now, about 1,000 miles before I started making my changes, I noticed a little bit of death wobble. I noticed some weird things going on with my electronic steering pump, and I noticed a little bit of play in my drag link. So I knew that it was time to replace my drag link. My tie rod was pretty much fine, but I figured I might as well do everything at once. And I knew I had to address my electronic steering issue so that I wouldn't get stranded. So I went all in. I bought a full high steer setup that matched my Jeep a little bit better, and I went to a PSC Hydro full conversion kit. Now, maybe a little unnecessary, but the way I use my Jeep, it actually does make sense. However, I didn't do that until about 38,000 miles. And in the time that I've owned it, I've really been able to save in my budget because I haven't had to make these unnecessary purchases along the way. 38,000 miles ago, if I replaced my ball joints, if I replaced my steering linkage, I'm probably going to be replacing them again right now because they're worn out from the big heavy tires on the factory axle. This is just kind of talking through about how you can actually save yourself money and not buy things twice by panic buying because someone told you that you had to run something so that you can be so much more secure and safe. Now this thing bombs across the desert, it rock crawls, it camps, it's overloaded. I drive this thing hard as hell and it's held up. But I knew that things were going to start to wear out early. So eventually, after plenty of monitoring and keeping a close eye on things, it was time to make my change. There's a lot of brands out there, a lot of different things. I'm not going to talk about any of that today, but I will tell you this. Real cost control does not come from buying cheap parts, saving money on parts. In a lot of cases, you're going to probably end up spending more if you buy cheap parts instead of quality parts, but that cost control really comes from buying at the right time and for the right reasons. So if you want help thinking through upgrade decisions without panic or pressure, I put together that free resource. It's called the Jeep Cost Control Playbook. It's going to walk you through this exact framework step by step. And again, it's down in my description below. If you remember anything from this video, remember this. The most expensive Jeep parts aren't the ones that you buy. They're the ones that you buy too early. So do me a favor, check out this video next. Thanks for stopping by and I'll see you on the next one.